Do you have a Shopware 6 shop and want to see exactly how to customize the emails it sends? Then you've come to the right video, because today we're going to take a look at exactly how well the email templates work. Let's briefly talk about the term, because I don't think everyone necessarily knows what a so-called template is. Basically, it's just the foundation for the email we're sending. It would be super annoying if we had to write the email from scratch every single time, right? I mean, the text we want to send over and over anyway, if that had to be sent manually every time, this is solved using templates, which basically, provide a framework where individual values are entered, like the customer's name or, other things. Let's take a look. To do this, we go to our settings on the left side in Shopware 6, and then we find our email templates here under Content. There are a lot of them here, and before I read them all out, which wouldn't help any of us, and tell you what they do in detail, I'd like to briefly refer you to our documentation. So if you need help understanding, hey, what exactly is this template for at this point, there's a really good overview in the documentation. It's also much easier to follow than on the audio track. Feel free to take a look there. Our developer documentation is also linked there. I'll say a few more things about that in a moment, and our community hub. Now that we're in here, we can probably recognize a few emails directly, like the registration email here. Yeah, that's the email sent when a customer registers, or many others. At the bottom is another very interesting point, namely the headers and footers. So the email headers and email footers, what's at the top and what's at the bottom. For example, it could be that we always want to have our address at the bottom or our bank details. Then you would set that here by simply giving the whole thing a name. You can then add that to the respective email later, and you would write that here in the text. I'll explain what this plain text is and what the HTML text is in detail in a moment, because we'll find that again in the emails. I'll now go into the example I mentioned earlier, the registration email, and just open it. Of course, we can also create completely new templates. To do that, we can simply click the blue button at the top of the overview. First of all, it should be said that we can select the type here, okay? So what kind of template should this be? Is it something that happens during double opt-in? Is it something that happens with an invoice, and so on? So that would be selected here. Then we have the description directly below it. It makes a lot of sense, especially when you create new templates, to briefly write in there, hey, what is this email template intended for? So that the next person logging into the administration, or you yourself, after a while still understand what this template was actually for. Right below that, we have the options for the subject and for the sender name. Exactly, so we can choose here exactly what should be in there. Usually here, for example, you've registered now, you put your name after it. It looks a bit messy here now. Of course, you don't need any programming skills for this. I'll still explain a few things that go a bit in that direction, because we have a variable here. A variable is basically always a field that is filled dynamically. Yeah. So we don't even know yet how, for example, here, where this mail template is used. And here it says, for example, oh, hey, take the variable for the name of the respective sales channel. So if our sales channel is called Super Cool Video, for example, it would say Super Cool Video here. Whether the video is that cool remains to be seen. Right behind that, we have the sender name. Here too, we can then say again what should be in there. For example, it often makes sense here too to just have the name of the respective sales channel in there. Right below that, we can add attachments, okay? That could be, for example, we always want a PDF with our terms and conditions to be included with our order confirmations, or that a certain image is sent along. Or, depending on that, think of your individual case. It's definitely feasible with this. So you can just add media, you can upload new media, which are then attached to the mail. And now we get to the exciting part, namely the mail templates. We have the plain text here, so here are just variables and text, and once below that, the HTML text, so basically the, visually enhanced text. Basically, both say the same thing, only that down here in the HTML text, it says again, hey, this is the font that should be used, this is the font size that should be used, a paragraph should be made there. Okay, so with HTML, you can basically describe how text should look. And we can also already go here without programming knowledge and say, okay, we want to change the word now, for example. We want to turn the period here into a comma, and so on. We just always have to be careful here, if you're not a developer, that you don't adjust these tags. Tags are always this information in the brackets, because that could break the logic, which then also basically breaks the mail template, or rather there's no more logic in terms of programming, and then it all doesn't make much sense anymore and doesn't work anymore. In the same way, we have it up here with plain text. We can just adjust it like that. That means that's also the text that is always sent as a fallback, so to speak. This means that if the email reaches the customer and they have no way to see the prettified version, they will always see this version instead. It's all described a bit awkwardly right now. The main thing is that you understand you can already adjust the standard texts here on the fly. You don't have to be some kind of super hardcore programmer and understand everything, right? And you can also add information here. If I wanted to, for example, write my name here, my bank details or something, so, static values especially, then I can just add them here. I can, of course, also add more variables and build new texts that way. Basically, and I'll only touch on this topic very briefly, we can always use curly brackets for this, open them, and then I could, for example, select the customer table here and say, I want some information about the customer, and then I could say, from the drop down here, what do I want? I'll say I want their birthday, for example, and now when I close the brackets again, the customer's birthday would always be displayed in every email sent with this template. Depending on what kind of email template it is, that might even make sense. You can find all the variables and the corresponding explanation of what each value is in our documentation as well. Of course, it wouldn't make any sense here either if I read it all out to you in detail. That wouldn't help anyone. It's also better to do it via the text track. The important thing is that you've seen it once. You can also, without being a programmer, relatively easily add dynamic values to the email template and pull them in like that. Because, for example, you don't know in advance when the customer receiving this email has their birthday. And that's how you can automate it quite well, especially since it's often sent to multiple customers. That's the whole point of it. If we're happy with our email template and all the settings we've made, we can click Save Up here or press Ctrl F on the keyboard. Then it's saved and will be applied to the next emails sent with this template. And that's all for this video. I hope I was able to help you out. As I said, feel free to check out the video description. Take care and bye.